Hello, and welcome to On the Prowl. I'm your host, Gabby Raby, and with me today is the coach of the Hahnville Tigers, Coach Nick Saltaformaggio. Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
Thank you, Gabby.
Coming up on today's show, Coach Salt will take a look back at last week's game against the HL Bourgeois Braves, and we'll get Coach's look ahead at this Friday's final regular season game against the Thibodaux Tigers. And finally, in today's show, we take a look back at Hahnville's senior night volleyball game and who the Lady Tigers will face in the state playoffs. Great game, Coach. Last week was a rare Thursday night game for you. Were you worried about not having an extra day of practice?
Well, yeah, on the front end we were, Gabby, but it kind of worked out for us. We got the win and we got an extra day to rest, which we needed because we lost another receiver for the year. We lost Michael Gray with a broken collarbone, so now it's two guys we've lost for the year, Waylon LeBlanc and Michael Gray. Both play the same position, both with the same injury, so that was a tough night for us in that respect. But some of the minor injuries and bumps and bruises we got that extra day to heal up.
What did you and your team have to do differently, considering that you had some players out due to injuries and the game being on Thursday?
Just with that condensed week, we really had to simplify what we were doing across the board, offensively, defensively. And our kicking game remains pretty consistent. We don't change it a whole lot. We will have to do that this week with Michael Gray out because we've lost a returner. But more than anything, it just kind of makes you focus on fundamentals because the period of time to practice is so short. With the Thursday night game, that it almost kind of helps you in that instead of worrying about implementing game plan, you just go back and focus on simple fundamentals of the game, like tackling and defending half man and offensively making sure your steps are right and you're running the right gaps, things like that. So it really kind of helps you because it focuses you a little bit, but from a game plan standpoint, it really limits what you can do.
Considering Hahnville is not a 6-2 team, do you think Hahnville is where they want to be right before the playoffs?
Yeah, we got, getting our 7th win kind of puts us in a position. Well, I told the guys after the game, this is the 3rd straight year we've won 7 regular season games, but we have 1 more to go. So that gives them an opportunity to win 8, which would be, for this senior group to win that number of games is really outstanding. It also gives us an opportunity to play for a top 8 seed in the state playoffs this week, which is important because if you get in that top 8, you get 2 home playoff games right off the bat. If you're successful in the first one, you'll be home again in the second round. And just thirdly, as far as the district is concerned, with Thibodaux coming up this week, it was another district win. And the last 2 years, or the 2 years that I've been at Hahnville, the only district losses we've had have been to Destrehan and Thibodaux my first year, and we avenged that last year. So what we're talking about now is, closing the gap, becoming the team in the district, kind of like Destrehan is, that no one wants to play. And, even from the Destrehan standpoint, we've closed the gap now with those guys. We were within 3 points in 8 seconds of winning that game. So there's a lot for us to play for this week, but to be 7-2 and kind of rolling along, and we're on a 5-game win streak. We just want to keep it going.
Thanks, Coach. Let's take a look at the first half highlights.
Playing out early on that grass field, that field was very, very hard, and so we were a little concerned about our footing. But Cade Miguez makes a nice catch, and then a great run after catch for a long touchdown pass from Austin to get us up 7-0. We get the ball right back to Anthony, who lets his speed do the work, and we get a nice run gain. He breaks some tackles, and he's able to get in for a touchdown, get us up 14-0 early. Defensively, we were really struggling to handle number 8. He was a very, very good football player, LeCompte, but Elgin Collins comes in there and makes a tackle for a loss. We get the ball right back, and then I believe Austin gets a deep ball across the middle to Jamel Bird, who, great upper body strength, uses a stiff arm, and another stiff arm picks up a bunch of yards after catch. And then we go right back to work with Anthony on the ground game. He puts his foot in the ground and accelerates in the end zone, gets us up 21-3 at this point. And things were looking pretty good for us. Again, we get nice pressure on the quarterback. Nolan Darrensburg gets a nice sack and comes up with Lincoln Reynard finishing it off. So whenever you can get that kind of pressure and, that kind of push up front bodes well for you defensively. Anthony doing what Anthony does. I don't think you could hit him with a bunch of rocks in a phone booth. He's making a lot of guys miss and, accelerates up the field. We come right back with another carry, and off and running, he goes for another touchdown, and that kind of puts us up 28-6, I think, at that point, which was a little bit right before half. We get the ball right back, and then Austin does a great job getting a long ball down the field to Jaquan Jackson. Sophomore is going to be a really, really good football player for us. We had to step up because of the injury to both Waylon and Michael Gray. Unfortunately, it was called back on a penalty, but Austin goes right back to work. Hits Brandon Johnson, who's had to come in and play a big role for us as well. And on the very last play of the half, Austin scrambles out of there and sneaks it in for us, put us up pretty handily right at halftime. So it was a good first half. We got a lot of points early, and when you get that, you get to play a lot of guys, especially on that field. The field is really rough, and it's rough on your body. You'd think falling on that turf we play on would be more damaging to you, but that turf's kind of soft. That field was like falling on concrete, so we were a little worried about it all night.
How did Austin Perrin's touchdown give your team an advantage at halftime, being that this brought your score up to 28-6?
Well, it gave us a 3-touchdown lead. We knew we were going to be playing pretty good defense. We've been playing pretty good defense as of late. So when you get that kind of lead at halftime, you get to exhale a little bit, kind of work on some different things that you might want to see. And then also, because you're on a short week and your game plan's been simplified, you don't have to worry about digging in your toolbox and trying to find something that you wouldn't ordinarily have to use because the score might be closer or you might even be trailing it. So it just makes it comfortable. And plus, when you can get that score right before half like that, especially the way we did it with a long ball and then Austin with a great run after the time was running down, it just gives you so much more momentum. You feel a whole lot better about where you are.
How will Hahnville have to adjust due to Mike Gray's collarbone injury he attained in the first half of the game?
Well, it came so early in the game that we really adjusted to it that night. I mean, the next guy up has to play. For us, Brandon Johnson and Jaquan Jackson are both very talented kids. We actually were short. Tremont Nash had hurt his ankle a week before, who also, he plays a little bit of running back, a little bit of receiver for us. So we were short him that night as well, but we should get him back this week, at least on a limited basis. But, I mean, as injuries are part of the game. It's part of sports, not just football. It's part of sports, and good football teams can overcome that. You don't want to get too many of them. And the thing that hurts us is it's in the same spot. Both Waylon and Michael play the same exact position. So what we have to do now is, the third guy has to do a good job, but also take a guy from another position, another receiver position, and put him in that slot spot to give us some depth.
Your defense held HL Bourgeois to 2 field goals in the first half. Are you happy with the way they played last week?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the time of year where you have to be able to do 3 things really well if you're going to keep advancing. You have to be sound in your kicking game, which, fortunately we have been, even with the loss of Thomas Roscoe. We lost Thomas to a non-football related injury, but both Dalton Alonso and Matt Boyer have come in and have picked up that slack. So you have to be sound in your kicking game, your kick coverage game as well. You have to be able to run the football, which we're doing very well right now. And then you have to be able to defend the run game defensively, which we've been doing a pretty good job of as well. So if you can continue to do those 3 things, focus on yourself, then you're going to have an opportunity to make a long run. And that's what we're doing. We're focusing on Hahnville and trying to get better in those 3 areas because there's still improvement that we can make.
Let's take a look at the second half highlights.
Great thing about the second half of the game is we were able to play a lot of kids early. We started out the first half with some of our backup guys, but when this happens on the opening kickoff, now you're up 35-6, and you can start rolling some guys, and then, there's not a whole lot you can say about Anthony other than just enjoy him because he is a very special, talented person. Elijah Brent comes in, makes a nice play on a bobbled snap. Cameron Cabral does a nice job holding the edge, and William Brown finishes it off. That's 2 senior football players that didn't play a lot their first 3 years that have really come out and had great senior years for us. And then, Anthony taking off again. Seemed like he was always running on their sideline there. And then Anthony one more time getting the ball and, making a bunch of guys miss. Gets the ball back out in the middle of the field. Smart enough to get down, try not to make too many twists and turns. And then the the second half of our punch, had Devontae Clark with a nice touchdown run. It puts us up 40, I think it was 43-6 at that point. And then we started substituting pretty liberally across the board. Jamal Davis with his first interception of the year. And I told him on the sidelines, he ran about 200 yards for about a 6-yard return. So sometimes it's best just to go straight, runs out a little bit of gas and gets right back to where he kind of started from. There's Nolan Darrensburg on a blitz. Logan Robert doing a nice job defending it. Hunter LeBlanc getting an interception in the end zone. And with a nice return, a little giddy-up stroll there to get the return. And, we wound up winning the game big and getting to play a lot of people. And, whenever that happens, you keep interest involved at practice because guys know they're going to have an opportunity to play on Friday night. Especially now, both of our freshman and JV seasons are over. Both of those teams went undefeated. So a lot of those guys feel like, well, I'm not going to get to play a whole lot, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen on Friday night. When we get those leads, we like to get our guys in the game. And then, again, with sports, the next guy up's got to be ready to go. So it was a good night and all.
How did Anthony's running game give your team an advantage overall throughout the game?
Well, whenever you can run the football, you can control the time of possession. Now, the problem with Anthony is usually when he runs, it's 2 or 3 runs and he's in the end zone. So, but both he and Devontae have done a really, really good job. And Cade Miguez, we really have had an opportunity to have a kind of a 3-headed monster back there running the football for us. And then because we've been up in late in games, we've also had other guys come in, younger guys, sophomores, come in and run the football and run it effectively. And then even Friday night, we had a couple of 9th graders run the football late in the game who I think are going to be special players for us down the road. So when you get guys that young getting to run the ball late in the game, you're using a lot of clock up. You're not having to constantly have Anthony and Devontae take that kind of beating that you get on a Friday night in a football game. And, your defense gets to sit on the sideline and enjoy the game. And usually the other team can't score if they don't have the ball. So that's the great part about having a good run game.
In the third quarter, you were up 43-12. Did that give your younger players a chance to get into the game?
Yeah, we rolled a bunch. We probably played about 45, 50 guys Friday night, and we've been able to do that the last 3 Friday nights. Hopefully we get to do it this Friday night. Thibodaux's a really good football team, but hopefully we get to continue to play those guys. There's no experience like a Friday night experience. Even though the vast majority of our kids, all of our kids that wear a Hahnville helmet play football either on a Wednesday or a Friday. But the difference between the Wednesday night JV or freshman game and a Friday night varsity game is astronomically big. The lights are bigger, the crowds are bigger, the players are bigger, the game's faster. So whenever you can get on that field on a Friday night, it just moves you further along in your development as a player more quickly. And that's what we're looking for.
HL ended with a 5-yard run in the last minute of the game. How did you keep them from scoring throughout almost the entire second half?
Well, it's kind of our first defense does a really good job. And, our second defense and our third defense have been playing so much. Again, they're getting used to that Friday night atmosphere. So early in the year when we would get up and we put some of our backups in, they weren't quite ready to play and teams would drive down the field and score. But I think now we're getting better and better with our reserves because they have been playing a whole lot in the second half of ball games, and the stage isn't that big for them. And so they get in there and they do a nice job. But again, when you substitute that many guys, eventually you're going to have a little break in the dam, and that's kind of what happened to us.
Thanks, Coach. Coming up next, we'll get Coach look ahead to this week's game against the Thibodaux Tigers and who the Lady Tigers face in the volleyball state playoffs. We'll give you the rundown up next.
It's the beginning of the new year and time to start with those resolutions. What better way to start than with the Get Fit United Way program? In this program, participants go through 12 weeks of training and eating healthier. But what really goes on during that time? On the first day, participants meet with their trainers and receive their 24-hour access keys for Anytime Fitness. From there, they go through a 1-hour health class, 2 days of boot camp, and a day of group gym training during the 12 weeks. After the end of the 12 weeks, everyone who participated receives discounted Anytime Fitness memberships to continue their training.
Welcome back to On the Prowl. I'm your host, Gabby Raby. Last week, the Hahnville Lady Tigers had their final home game of the season versus the Central Wildcats. It was also senior night for the volleyball team. Nyla Moore has this report.
Last Thursday night, the Hahnville Lady Tigers utilized their strengths in all phases of the game to get the win against the Central Baton Rouge Wildcats.
I think all around, definitely, after we kind of got a feel for the other team, we definitely picked up all around. Our defense was amazing tonight compared to what it has been. Our offense and our hitter-setter communication, it was just, everything was pretty much working for us tonight.
Our passing was really good out of serve receive, and our offense was really good. I'm so proud of Kylie and Allie, and honestly, all the seniors up there. It's just so, I'm glad they could leave with something good.
I think just the pace of what we were doing, there was never much of a lull. I thought we were quick out of offense, which was big, and then defense, we touched balls and kept it off the ground, so it just makes all the difference in the world.
The players said it was an emotional senior night game, and the Lady Tigers were happy to get a win in their final regular season home game.
I mean, I think maybe it did. I don't know. I hope it did. I don't know, because they were crying all over the place before the match, so I was very nervous about how we would play, but maybe we'll just have a cry fest every time and see if that works.
It's been 4 years, and I mean, I've loved every second of it. You know, we had our rough times, we had our hard times, but then being able to come out here and make this my last game, it's definitely kind of makes the whole thing worth it.
Oh my God, it's amazing, because just like since it's senior night and I can make like my coaches proud, and then the seniors got to leave with such a nice memory of how to play together. It's just a great night, and I can't even express myself right now.
The team has met all of the goals that they made at the start of the season and are awaiting to see how playoffs will work out in their favor.
It's definitely where we hoped we would be. It's definitely some goals we set. We had two major goals of one to win district, and we accomplished that. And then we wanted to play our first playoff game at home. And I think we've solidified that. And then they want to make it at least past the first round, and I feel like we're in a great position to do that. So absolutely, this is where our sights were, and it feels like we're making it happen.
We're expected to get a home playoff game, possibly a bye if PowerPoints work out the way we want them to.
Tonight was an emotional win for the Hahnville Tigers. They faced Central Baton Rouge on senior night. Up next, they'll find out who they face in the playoffs. I'm Nyla Moore reporting for On the Prowl.
Thanks, Nyla, for that report. The Hahnville Lady Tigers won their district for the first time since 2006 and will face the Bonneville Bruins in the first round of the playoffs in the Hahnville Gym on Wednesday, November 2nd. Do you think with the game on Thursday gave you more time to prepare for Thibodaux?
Yeah, but sometimes you get to watch too much film. You know, I guess, well, I like to look at film. I watch it every day, but the more I watch Thibodaux, the kind of eerie feeling you get that, you know, you're playing a really, really good team in week 10, and, you know, it's the week before the state playoffs. But, you know, from a healing standpoint and just kind of catching your breath, giving them a long weekend, it was good for us. But we went back to work yesterday, you know, and we have a lot of work to do. Thibodaux is a very good football team, so we know what we're up against Friday night. Fortunately for us, it's at home, which is always a huge advantage for us. We haven't lost at Hahnville this year. So, you know, we know what's ahead. We know what we can accomplish if we're fortunate enough to get the victory. So our guys, you know, they worked really hard yesterday, and I'm expecting them to have a good, hard practice today.
In the Herald Guide, you stated the Tigers will cement a top 10 seed in the Class 5A playoffs with a win against Thibodaux. How do you plan taking on that spot?
Well, you know, in the state playoffs, there's a lot of things that go into you advancing. One is your own team's health, which other than that one receiver spot, we're pretty healthy. You know, and you know, I hope to God we continue to be healthy. The second thing is what kind of matchup do you have? Is it favorable to what you do offensively and defensively? So we won't know that until Sunday. And then thirdly, you know, again, if we're fortunate enough to get the win, that we'd be on a 6-game win streak going into the state playoffs, which, you know, that just gives you a lot of momentum and a lot of confidence. And, you know, hopefully we're able to get accomplished what we need to get accomplished Friday night against Thibodaux to give us, you know, to give us a kind of mindset going in.
Coach, this is your seniors' last regular season home game. What do these players mean to you?
Well, they've been a great group for me. You know, when I got there, those guys were in the middle of their sophomore year. And so, they were still pups along the way. And we've had a couple of guys like a Drew Jones, who's been a starter there for 4 years. And so, and has a lineage of brothers that played football for Hahnville. And so, for those guys, it's going to be a very special moment. And, and for me, it'll be a special moment because it's kind of that first group that I inherited as young men. And now I've watched them grow into adults, or young adults. And so I look at guys, that when I first got there, that we didn't know if they were going to develop or not, and have become really good players. Like a kid like Tyler Fricky has become an outstanding football player for us. And Cade Miguez was a little skinny pencil when I got there, and now he's a big, strong, running back for us. And then you have a guy like Austin Perrin who came in, really highly touted out of middle school, and had some bumps in the road, in our program when I took over, but really came back this year and has had a great senior year for us. And then on the defensive side of the ball, guys like Trayvon Chambers and Devin Williams have had nice years for us. And then you have the special guys like a Trayvon Honor, who's just going to be, in my opinion, one of the very, very best players, not only that I've ever had an opportunity to coach, but as a young man, I've had the opportunity to know him. And I think he's, his life is going to be very fulfilling just because of the type of human being he is. So it's nice to see guys like that. And there are many, many more, that I could list. We have 21 seniors on this football team. But, those are the guys that came in and were playing a little bit when I got there. And I just watched them kind of grow and mature into really fine young men. And that's what, to me, high school football is all about. You want to win a game, and the fans want you to win the game, and the school wants you to win the game, and obviously as a coach, you want to win the game. But when you look at the development of a person, when you take them over as a 13 or 14-year-old boy, and then 4 years later they're a 17, 18-year-old man, and you know that you've instilled qualities in life that are going to make them great dads and great husbands and great workers and great community people for the rest of their lives. That to me is a way more important attribute than, oh, I'm a district champion, or, oh, I'm all district, or things like that. And you don't win games without good people. I truly believe that. 34 years in this business, I've never coached a team, and unfortunately I've coached teams that had some kind of rough edges to it, and they weren't as successful as they could have been. And then I've coached teams who have had great people. They may not have been the best athletes, but they were great people. They were great in the classroom. They were great in the lunchroom. They were great in the community. They treated their families and teachers with respect and dignity. And those teams went a long way in the state playoffs. And, one of them was a state championship team. So, when I look at a kid like a Trayvon Honor and a Cade Miguez, I just can't help but be so thankful that they came into my life more than I came into theirs. So, it's going to be tough, to see them go because they're great players, but it's tougher to see them go because they're great people.
Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
Thank you.
And that will do it for this week's edition of Hahnville on the Prowl. For updates and news on Press Play Productions, check out our website at presstheplay.tv. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Press the Play. I'm your host, Gabby Raby. Thanks for watching.